dudes, how you doing? I hope you're having a goddamn great day. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be replicating Will Still's 4-3-3 formation in the game FC24. Now, I will say this, it's a disclaimer. They have altered shapes and structures throughout the course of the season. They have played a 4-2-3-1, they have played a 3-4-3, they have played a back five system, but mainly throughout the course of the season they have stuck with a 4-3-3. So that's the shape and the structure and the tactics that I'm looking to try and replicate and recreate for you guys. So if you can, hit that like button down below, subscribe if you are new. There's a lot of research has gone into this, and I hope you guys enjoy the videos. So taking a look at the structure at hand, it is a 4-3-3 holding. There's no structural changes that I've made to it, so therefore it is going to be one goalkeeper, two centre backs, two fullbacks, one DM, two central midfielders, one striker, and then of course two wingers. So moving on to the tactics, and the tactical vision that I've gone with is standard. Now of course, Will Still and Reims do tend to play some very good possession-based football, but at the same time, they haven't really stuck to a particular game plan. They are very much adaptable, and I think more so the standard tactical vision does best suit them, because more times than not, their key values and their core values of this team is to try and make sure that structurally you're very, very good, making sure it's very hard to try and have the offense break down your defensive structure, as well as what the standard approach does. It allows for the attacking players to still try and support when going forward, when building the ball from back to front. So you still have all those good positive moments, but at the same time, structurally and the formation wise, it's more or less going to remain very much intact. As for the defense and the defensive style of things, I've set it to balance. Of course, this does go hand in hand with the tactical vision, but still, it does still allow you to make sure that structurally your formation is very hard to break down. The opposition can't fit players in and around. They can't exploit the opposition at all. And again, this goes with the team width being set to 50. It's a very balanced approach, a very nice way of creating those 1v1 situations, making sure that all of your players are responsible for the opposition player that they have been given to mark or try and control and mark out of the game. As for the depth, it is set to the higher end of a mid-block, but it is still set to a mid-block, set to 65. This does help with making sure that you aren't exposed with any potential counter-attacking opportunities from the opposition, but at the same time, because it is on the higher end of a mid-block, or what is considered a mid-block, it still helps you in possession. It still allows for your fullbacks to be able to bomb forward. It still allows for them to be very much involved in the attacking outlet, as well as allowing for them to try and pin back the opposition, especially if you are playing a lesser side. Will Still has proven that with this side, with this Reims team, he can look to try and dominate teams, as well as hang with the big boys like the likes of a PSG and a Monaco and Nice and so on. He can look to try and tango with them to the best of his capabilities. I will also say this, we will talk about the defensive outlets and more or less the structure and the pressing formation that they look to try and shape into when out of possession of the ball, if they are looking to try and soak up pressure. So we will also talk about that. But right now, we're talking about the offense going forward with this tactic. Of course, the builder player is set to balance. This does still allow for the players to be able to try and help and support, whether it's in those wider channels or more centrally, they can still look to do so, as well as the chance creation still being set to balance. You can still look to have that long ball approach. If the opposition players look to try and press from the goalkeeper restarts, you can look to go long, trying to exploit them. You do have quite some good, fast, pacey players in the front line that you can look to try and exploit the opposition with. Or you might be able to build up quite slowly and effectively from the back, looking to, progress the ball through the final thirds of the field, making those little triangle passages of play, and look to try and, style essentially on what the opposition has to offer. Looking to try and exploit them, try and dominate them. You can look to incorporate all these different dynamics into your game plan with the balanced or standard approach, with the tactical vision being set to standard. As for the width, it is set to 75. Now, this is more so to try and encourage your fullbacks, who will be holding the width more times than not in the field. They'll be encouraged to get wide and get high up the field, looking to try and whip in crosses and cutbacks and supply a lot of the width down either flank, allowing for the wingers to more or less tuck in and be inverted attacking players. So more so, you are trying to generate a lot of the width on a horizontal plane for this side going forward. Onto the likes of the players in the box, I've set it to 6. Now, a very balanced approach, allowing for your front three, who will have inverted wingers, being able to crash into the box, attack the crosses, attack the potential cutbacks, be a nuisance to the opposition. But it does allow for a nice balanced approach, in my opinion, which, in case you didn't notice, it is a very balanced theme. But you will still have around 3 to 4 players around the area waiting to maybe recycle play, win the ball back very effectively, because they do tend to implement a nice, effective counter-pressing system that can allow them to win the ball back nice and high up the field and allow you to exploit the opposition with a potential counter-attack hero there. So, as for the corners and the free kicks, as per always, I've set it to 4. So moving on to the instructions, starting off at the back with the goalkeeper, I've set him to balance for the saving on crosses. I think in terms of what he can do and what he can't do, Juve, I think he's very solid. But there are times where he should maybe come out and punch the ball, and there are times where he should maybe stay on his line. So therefore, you are trying to replicate that behavior, and I think a balanced approach does do this. As for that serving outside of the box, you are playing a mid-block, but it is a higher mid-block. So therefore, I would assume that a sweeper keeper is going to be required, and therefore you would expect and require him to be able to read the game, be able to be proactive, clear those balls when they are fired into that no man's land area, or maybe look to try and win the ball back and then recycle it back into the back line. As for your two centre backs, of course, they're set to their base set of instructions, no major changes to them. But for your fullbacks, very, very, very important to the attacking outlets of the side. So both of them, just like with the centre backs, are set to the same set of instructions. During the attack, it is going to be a necessity for your fullbacks to create those overlapping runs, create a lot of the space down the wider areas for your wingers to try and exploit, as they will be obviously inverted. For the run type, of course, goes without saying, they're going to be told to overlap as much as possible, consistently looking to overlap the wingers, looking for that potential slip-in through ball, looking to try and whip in crosses and cutbacks. And then finally, for the defense positioning, I've told both of them to stick to position, looking to try and maintain the formation and the structure at the back as best as they possibly can. As you'll see here, for the left back, he has got the same set of instructions and roles as the right. So, moving on into the midfield, of course, I'm not going to try and pronounce these players' names because I don't know how, and I'm not about to make a damn fool of myself. So, for the DM, I'm just going to use the positions. For the DM, he's set to cut passing lanes. He has a bit more of a zonal approach, looking to try and sweep up in front of that back four, or even trying to sweep up the mistakes that maybe one of the number 8s just further in front of him will potentially make, looking to be very effective when it comes to protecting the back four. As for the attacking support, you don't really require him to get too far forward. You would require him to necessarily try and pick the ball up from the defenders or the goalkeeper for those restarts, so therefore stay back while attacking. It does reflect his role very effectively. The interceptions is set to normal, and then finally, you want him to be the deep line playmaker. Pop up in those little half spaces, show for the ball with those goalkeeper restarts, be very effective with being able to take the ball off of the back line and progress it further into the midfield or maybe even into the forward line. He is very good at spraying those balls into those wider channels, whether it's to a winger or potentially to one of the fullbacks. I will also say this, I forgot to mention it for the fullback roles, but because they get so far high and wide, the switch of play is a very, very, very effective use or thing to do with the system, because more times than not, with the sheer overload on the one side, it will often leave the other side very light in terms of the opposition players. So a switch of play is going to be a very effective option for you when using these tactics and this system. Onto the defensive positioning, I've told him to cover the center, looking to try and sit in front of the back four, but again, you can look to try and drag him manually out of position, looking to try and fill in for a potential fullback when they are out of that natural defensive area, or potentially he can look to just stay central and be a very good protective layer and barrier for this back four formation. So onto your two number 8s, of course, they have got the same roles as well, both of them being those box-to-box players. Both of them can look to drop a bit deeper, support with the builder play, or potentially hang slightly high up the field and be a very good offensive outlet, looking to try and link the midfield and the offense together very effectively. For the support on crosses, you want them to also be set to balance, so sometimes hanging on the edge of the area, looking to try and recycle play very effectively, other times looking to break into the box, especially if one of your inverted wingers has not, made that attacking run. For the interceptions, I've set it to aggressive, and this does help with the counter-pressing aggressive nature that Will still is trying to implement with the side, making sure that when the ball is turned over, the opposition can't really play through the central areas of the field, looking to try and funnel them into those wider areas for either a fullback or one of your wingers to try and pick up. As for the likes of the defensive positioning, I've told them to cover the wing. They will also look to try and drift into those wider areas as much as possible. Of course, with the likes of your DM being set to cover the center, it makes the most sense for your two number 8s to also drift. But if they are out of position, you can manually look to try and pull your DM into those wider areas. But the most important thing, because your fullbacks will be very involved in the attacking outlet, providing a lot of the width and allowing for your two wingers to try and tuck in a bit more, your number 8s have a very free role. So I think the free roam approach does replicate and suit what they are trying to do. They can look to try and drift all throughout the course of the field. They can look to try and, overload in certain areas. Both of them sometimes are found on the one side of the field. Other times, both of them are found on, centrally. So you will be required for both of them to have a very free role when going forwards, allowing them to pop up in little half spaces, pull players out of position, create overloads, and be a nuisance on the offensive end of things. As you'll see for the other number 8, he's got the same set of instructions and roles. Onto your striker. So he is set to a balanced width, so he can play along the back line. He can play as a winger, he can play as a striker, and you would expect and require him to sometimes drift, pull players out of position, open up spaces for the inverted wingers. But at the same time, you would require your striker to have a bit more of a central role in certain moments, and therefore I think a balanced width does suit him. It also allows him to arc his runs in and out when making those attacking runs going forward. For the attacking runs, I've set him to mixed. Of course, he is a natural winger that is playing a bit more centrally, that Will still is using to try and exploit the opposition with his pace more centrally, of course. So therefore, a mixed attack does replicate his role. I think having him as a false 9 in certain moments, dropping deeper, getting on the ball, driving at the opposition is going to be very effective. At the same time, also trying to use his pace, exploit the opposition's backline with a quick ball over the top, potentially. That could also be an option for you when looking to play the ball out or play the ball into those attacking areas. For the interceptions, I've set it to aggressive, looking to try and press the opposition very effectively, the backline, the goalkeeper, making sure that they are very uneasy when playing out from the back or building out from the back, and making sure that they are forced into uncomfortable situations, whether that's clearing the ball or playing a risky pass and maybe leading to a potential turnover and therefore into your favor an attacking outlet, an opportunity. So for the defensive support, I've set it to basic, allowing him to sometimes drop a bit deeper and help support the defense when required, or maybe hang up the field and be an offensive outlet. Onto your two wingers, Aito and Nakamura. They are both set to the same set of instructions. Come back on defense, looking to consistently help out the fullbacks if they are out of position, and just look to try and drop a bit deeper and support the defense as much as they possibly can. For the transgression, I've set it to cuts inside as well as come short. Now this does help create those inverted winger type molds that you are trying to do with the system, especially with the fullbacks bombing on. Coming short, linking up with the two number 8s or the number 8s, as well as cut inside. You want them to be able to shift the ball onto their more favorable foot and then look to pop off shots or trying to create for the players in and around them. As for the interceptions, I've set it to normal, and then finally, you want them to be able to break into the box more times than not, so therefore get into the box for the cross. As you'll see here for the likes of Nakamura, he has got the same set of instructions as well. So, when the likes of Reims is out of possession, they look to try and shift into this 4-4-2 formation and try and be very aggressive, very compact, very hard to try and break down. So we will be discussing these tactics as well. I think it's a very effective system to try and revert into, especially if you are playing the likes of a PSG. And more so, it's been systems like this that have helped this Reims side, hang with the big boys, allow them to be able to be in those late game situations where it's still 0-0 or it's 1-1 and they're being very hard to break down. So it's a very good, effective system to try and use, as well as it's a very good counter-attacking system when in use. So for the formation at hand, it is a 4-4-2 system. It is one goalkeeper, two centre-backs, two full-backs, two central midfielders, two wider midfielders, and then, of course, two strikers. Onto the tactics. The tactical vision is still set to standard. That's not really going to change, especially if you are using these realistic tactics in a career mode. You don't really want to alter the tactical vision too much. For the defensive style, still set to balance, but the team width as well as the depth have now changed. The team width is now a very, very good, compact, set to 25 system, making it very hard for the opposition players to play through the central areas of the field, forcing them into those wider channels. As for the depth, it is set to 45. Now, this does also alter. This is their deep mid-block approach that they do look to try and take up, making sure that if the counter opportunities are there, they're not, as deep as what they would be in a low block per se. It still allows for some players to be slightly higher up the field. That's what I'm trying to say. But that you can look to try and adjust this if you are looking to try and soak up as much pressure as possible, making it very hard for the opposition to try and squeeze balls in behind or through the lines and trying to exploit your team's positioning as well as the back line. As for the offense, the build-up play is still set to balance, as well as the transgression still set to balance. Moving on to the team width, however, of course, on the offensive end of things, I've set it to 50. Now, this more or less allows them to try and incorporate various aspects of their game, whether it's attacking those wider areas or maybe channeling their attack more central. I think 50 does best suit the side with having the various mixed attacking outlets when going forward. Of course, you won't have as much support when bombing forward. Of course, you're looking to try and maintain the defensive structure as much as possible. So more so it will be your front four, your front two at times when progressing the ball forward. As for the likes of the players in the box, it is now set to 50 or 5, allowing for your front two more so to try and break into the box with the addition of the occasional third man running in and around that attacking area. As for the corners and the free kicks, as per always, it is still set to 4. So taking a look at the instructions for this formation, of course starting off at the back with the goalkeeper, the only change I have made to him is the saving outside of the box. Because you are playing a deeper mid-block now, you don't really require him to be a sweeper, and therefore having him set to balance, allowing him to be a bit more of a traditional goalkeeper, stay on his line, have the back line deal with those issues. That is going to be his role with this formation. As for your back line, however, their instructions have slightly altered. The interceptions is set to conservative, not encouraging them to be able to step out and be aggressive and chase those potential 50-50 balls. You want them to more or less remain structurally sound at the back, very hard to break down, make sure that they can constantly see the ball in front of them, making sure that the opposition players aren't breaking in behind them, looking to try and exploit them. So therefore, conservative interceptions is the best role for this side going forward. As for your two fullbacks, they've got the same roles as well. The attacking runs is set to balance, as well as the run type also being set to mixed, allowing for the opportunity, if the opportunity is there, down their flank, they can try and support the attack going forward. Whether it's an inverted run or potentially an overlapping run, they will obviously read the game and look to try and create the best possible opportunity. For the defensive positioning, however, in those wider areas, you are looking to try and funnel the opposition into those wider areas of the field. So step up is going to be essential. You would require your fullbacks to be very vigilant, very reactive to what the opposition can do. You would also require them to get nice and tight to the opposition winger or potentially the fullback, depending on what system they are playing, and therefore making sure that they are trying to stop any crosses that are fired into the box. As for your two central midfielders, both of them have the same roles as well. Both are told to stay back while attacking and then, of course, stay on the edge of the box, not looking to lend a helping hand when going forward with the ball. They're looking to maintain their structural integrity more centrally, making it very hard for the opposition to try and play through those central areas of the field. The interceptions is set to normal. Now you can also set it to aggressive, but I have found that it does open up a lot more channels more centrally for the opposition to try and exploit. So I think a more balanced or more normal approach best suits what you're trying to get out of the side when going forwards as well as backwards. And then finally, the defensive positioning is set to cover the center. You are looking for them to maintain that central role as best as they possibly can. For the positioning freedom when going forward, stick to position. You don't require them to drift wide, free roam, half spaces, none of that. Stick to position. When you get the ball, push it forward, push it into the front line, maybe try and play a ball over the top, exploit that opposition back line, and maybe you can nick a goal or so. As you'll see here for the other player, he's got the same set of instructions as well. For your two wingers, both of them also same roles. Come back on defense, looking to consistently help out on the defensive end, especially with this formation and this structure. You're not requiring them to hang up the field and be an outlet. You need them to help out in those wider channels of the field. As for the chance creation, I've told them to cut inside, still allowing them to be those inverted wingers or attacking options when required. For the support runs, however, I have set it to balance. Now, because you will be trying to play this counter-attacking type system, they will look to try and break in behind more times than not. But if you do progress the ball up the field very effectively and slowly, you can also expect your wider players to try and link up very effectively more centrally in certain moments. Onto the likes of the interceptions, it's set to aggressive, and then finally for the support on crosses, you don't necessarily want them to be too committed going forward, so therefore staying on the edge of the box, looking to try and facilitate, create, maybe pop off a shot from outside of the box. That might be a good opportunity for your players. Onto your forwards. Of course, you've got your more natural striker and the fill-in type guy, but both of them are going to look to try and press from the front. When you revert into this formation, it's going to be a very aggressive frontline press that you will look to try and implement. So both of them also set the same set of instructions. No major structural or instructional changes would be required for either side. So both of them, their support runs is set to balance, so looking to sometimes drift wide, run the channels, run the lanes, or potentially stay a bit more central for any potential ball that is fired in over the top. For the attacking runs, however, of course, they look to try and revert into the system when playing against the likes of a PSG or so on. So you would necessarily require your 2 forwards to try and break in behind as much as possible, looking to try and exploit the amount of space that the opposition will leave. And I think getting behind does a very effective job. The interceptions is set to aggressive, like I said earlier, looking to try and implement that very aggressive frontline press of the opposition's backline. And then finally, both of them are required to come back on defense, looking to try and help out the midfield as well as the backline as best as they possibly can. As you'll see here, for the other striker, he's got the same instructions as well. So there you have it, guys. That is how I would implement Will Still's Reims tactics into FC24. Like I said in the beginning of the video, they are a very pragmatic team. They can vary when it comes to the formations. They started off playing a 4-2-3-1. They've shifted to a 3-4-3. But mainly throughout the course of the season, they have played a 4-3-3. Therefore, I have tried to replicate those tactics and those instructions for what their players replicate in real life. So, of course, there are a few give and take situations. But if you have enjoyed this video, please hit that like button down below. Subscribe if you are new. That would be absolutely appreciated. Obviously, we are on the road to the next milestone of the channel, the journey, and that is 5K subscribers. So the faster we can get there, the absolute better it will be. But yes, out of 10, I would give this a solid 6.5. There are some really good elements to the side in this system that I enjoy. The free roaming number 8, putting players out of position, drifting all over the field, creating chaos and havoc. I like that. I like obviously the bombing on fullbacks with the inverted wingers. I do like that. But there are a few moments where the system can feel very clunky, so I don't overly enjoy it. And in those moments, the opposition can look to try and exploit you. So I will say, it can be a very good, effective system. It's a very pragmatic system, but there are a few issues with it. So if you guys can, let me know down below what you would rate it out of 10. That would be absolutely appreciated as well. But yes, until tomorrow, I'll see you guys next time. I'm out.